uncensored, unexpurgated, and unapologetic. It's the Cary Harrison Show.
Losing 25% of its share value in just one day, Meta has hit its lowest numbers in 6 years after the company reported its second straight quarterly revenue decline. Facebook's parent company saw its earnings plunge to $27 billion compared to an expected $28.5 billion, which turned out to be a disappointing result for investors. It said investors could see around $80 billion worth of market capitalization wiped off from the company. So to discuss this topic, let's cross live now to radio host Cary Harrison. Cary, it's great to have you on the program today. Now, let's start with the big question here. Why has Meta seen such drastic revenue drops?
Well, I think a lot of us have read Herman Melville's Moby Dick in whatever language we all speak, Chasing the Whale. And Zuckerberg is hell-bent on replicating what he originally did with Facebook. He's competing against Apple, which he sees as the big villain in this scheme. And of course, Zuckerberg has lost we're talking $100 billion. Whoever gets to talk about losing that much money? But he wants to own this metaverse, such as it is, which is going to be the next phase of the internet. And he's not going to stop. When he launched Facebook, and I interviewed him back in 2008, and he talked about basically controlling everyone, creating a whole ecosystem where you did all your shopping, all of your fake friends were in there, because real live humans have 1, 2, 3 friends in real life, but you could have 1,000 friends, unlimited fake friends. And it's about creating a new fake reality. And whatever it costs, he is not going to lose at this point.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are plenty of people that would take a fake reality at this point. But at the same time, we talk about Facebook, and so many people talk about how it's old, it's boring. So you would think that they would be excited for this new version of Meta. But some critics say that this decline happened due to Zuckerberg's plan of creating this metaverse, which hasn't really taken off yet, ultimately failing. Do you think that that could be one of the main reasons? And do you think that he is going to continue on that path no matter what at this point?
Well, to your point, Rachel, Quest, these instruments that Facebook is willing to build, we're talking about hardware as well as the software that is Facebook. People can't even wear these VR headsets that Facebook is making because they get nauseous. They throw up, emesis, vomit, horrible, dizziness. So they're not even anywhere near any kind of rollout. But the whole idea is to get people to think that the only future is the same one that Facebook has boasted, that it has offered so many people, these faux friendships, etc. And what is the larger goal of Facebook? Well, he still feels smitten by what Apple did, allowing people to opt out of apps, being able to track, etc., and target-based advertising. And so what he wants to do is supplant Apple's supply. What does Apple make that I am on right now? I am on a Mac. I admit it freely. Most people are on PCs. He wants to replace my ability to use an Apple-created Mac by putting me on a VR set or augmented reality headset with neural interconnectivity where I don't have to touch any controls, can talk intellectually to it, and I will never need a computer again. And by the way, that goes for the 200 million Microsoft PCs that people will buy, all being replaced by what Mark Zuckerberg says will be Meta's new invention. We just have no evidence that it could ever happen, and that's why Wall Street is reacting the way it is with such financial violence.
Goodness, it sounds like he's a long way off, and that may be a good thing given some of the things that he's planning. Now, speaking of advertising there, the decline in ad spending is also said to be a reason for this drop. Now, why are advertisers turning away from the tech company? Is it because these ideas are just too far out there and they can't get on board?
Well, it's a combination of that. Frankly, when you say Mark Zuckerberg, it's like saying Hillary Clinton. People bristle. They may not know why. They just bristle. Mark Zuckerberg, do you feel good? I'm not so sure. Do you want him babysitting your child? Maybe not. Do you want him, running your checkbook? Well, maybe not. And so he's not a brand that we came to trust. Facebook was rebranded into Meta. Why? Because they had such a bad rap. And then as of today, Facebook was fined $25 million, the largest fine in all of U.S. history for running political ads without disclosing who paid for them and what their goal was. That is federally illegal in the United States in Washington. So he's breaking laws to make political changes and moves that we're never a part of. Just like when Facebook changes its platform or its policy, we never know about it until after the fact, find out they've been spying on us. They've been transcribing our conversations. They've been doing peekaboo through the cameras. I think people are done with that.
That's definitely the hope. And if they're spying on you on Facebook, you can only imagine how they're spying on you in the future metaverse. Great insight as always. Radio host Cary Harrison, thank you so much for your time.
From Public Radio,
It's the Cary Harrison Show.
I've spent a decade taking a bite out of conspiracy theories, unraveling urban legends, and grappling with worldwide top secret issues.
I've even racked up some of their awards.
Wow, I mean, first of all, what a question.
Journalism is about telling the truth, all while ferreting out the bottom line.
I'm a Harrison Hellraiser.
Uh-oh, with me, Cary Harrison, as your guide.
If you served in the Marine Corps, by now you know about the contaminated water problem at Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987, you probably have a lot of questions. We have some answers. You could be entitled to compensation. Billions of dollars are being allocated to pay for damages to anyone stationed at Camp Lejeune during that time. Unfortunately, it appears that officials may have known the contaminated water problem existed and did little to protect their men. The Semper Fi code was not honored. If you or someone in your family has developed a serious illness, including various forms of cancer, call this Camp Lejeune legal support line right now. You can't turn back the clock and change what happened, but you can certainly call right now and learn your rights as a Marine. Here's the number.
Call 855-348-5936. That's 855-348-5936. 855-348-5936.
And it is the top of the hour. Cary Harrison with you, your new best friend. Welcome, a special show tonight, the Cary Harrison Show, a combo, a twofer with IMRU. If you haven't heard IMRU, it's only been on for 30 years, 3 decades plus, on Monday nights at 7 p.m. And I'm also doing this twofer. So it's on there, it's on here right now. Because today is an important day. Why? Well, not only are we celebrating the idea, the notion of independent media, but we're going to do a deep dig of what it really is. Because, you know, if you're like me or like your neighbor or like your grandmother or like every single person you know, they all have the same question. Well, where do I find real news? Seriously, where do I even go to get something nutritious? And why isn't it delivered at my doorstep as it was once upon a time by Walter Cronkite, who really tried not to lie? He also tried not to run commercials during the news, because you know what? It's supposed to be a fact-based half hour. And now a car commercial. Well, how do I know when the truth stops? You're just going to know, Timmy. Well, those days are now long past, so ingrained in us that we are literally confused. And we're going to get into how, why, who, what, and where, plus support KPFK, which is allowing us to have this conversation. When I say allowing, you will never, ever, ever, ever hear this on CNN. You will never, ever, ever, ever hear this on MSNBC, nor will you hear it on Fox, nor will you hear it anywhere, maybe Euronews, maybe Deutsche Welle in Germany, because it's part of their constitution after World War II, that the government and corporations could not control their news. Why? Well, we saw what happened when that happened for many years. So they still have this opportunity to talk like this. And we, uniquely in Los Angeles, we are one of 5 stations in the nation that can have this conversation without somebody coming in and pulling the plug. Cary Harrison with you. I want you to get my free newsletter, by the way, simply by going to caryharrison.com, CaryHarrison.com. Free newsletter that has this kind of stuff in it, stuff that I can do on the radio, but a lot deeper than I could do on the radio. plus perhaps more colorful metaphors that I definitely cannot do on the radio. So you're going to want to get that, all that and more, all the good, clean fun that is there and unimaginable and imaginable, plus interviews with people that I cannot bring on the radio for myriad reasons. But let's kind of jump into it today. We're going to get into why supporting KPFK is important, but more interestingly than that, that's kind of obvious. That's a given. We're the only game in town left. I was on Air America for 3-4 years while we developed Rachel Maddow, who nobody knew who she was. We brought her on the radio. We developed her for television. That was the goal, to get her on MSNBC along with Keith Olbermann and start to really touch people. Al Franken, we brought in to do the morning show. It was not a good morning show. Did I just say that? Yes. Is it true? Absolutely. Al Franken could not do a live extemporaneous show. The way I'm talking to you right now, no scripts, nothing. Top of my head, based on my many years in radio, and we know how to talk, and our guest coming up in a moment is going to be able to give us some insight on how all of that works. Well, Al Franken was brought in, and he literally had 4 writers, like it's the Jack Benny show in the 1940s. 4 writers in modern radio. Do you know what that costs per annum? $1 million to script out Al Franken's scripted show. Didn't take live phone calls because he could not. Always had guests because he could not take live phone calls. Now, why would we want to do that? We as Air America, I was not part of that we who constructed it. But they wanted him to run for Senate and have him be a powerful voice in the Senate, which he was until he touched a fanny, apologized, and still got fired. But the point was to get him, make him a household name, a comfortable guy that we all knew from Saturday Night Live once upon a time, and find out that he had really intelligent political chops. So it was really putting him out there, and it worked. And it got Rachel Maddow out there. That was Air America. Air America blew up through its own corruption. Listen, the left is like the right. When you get too far in either directions, problems happen. That's why the middle is always the best ground and the most solid foundation, to be sure. That said, Air America blew up. So now we have us here at KPFK. We are it. We are the only place to have these kinds of conversations and dialogues. Elon Musk just started up Twitter under his own brand. First thing, I got a text. I'm going to show it to you for those of you watching the video stream, which you can see on KPFK's Facebook page. You can also see it on my YouTube page or simply by going to caryharrison.com. This is a tweet that came in about 3 hours ago. Horrifying. From Donald J. Trump. There we go. And it says, thanks, Elon Musk, comma, I'm back now, 2 exclamation points. Well, he's back. He's back now and back bigger and braver than ever. Why would Elon Musk first move bring Donald Trump back on? Because Elon Musk is an uber capitalist in the most exquisite way. And he is going to get payback from Donald Trump in ways you can't even guess. With all that prowess, cachet, soup cat and pizzas, cash and prizes, yet to be imagined. They are going to be quite a team. As you remember, Elon Musk just a couple of months ago declared that he was going from Democrat to Republican because the Democrats suck. Well, here we are. So you just wait. You thought you saw hate speech before. You just wait. And then you'll be told it's not hate speech, it's proper speech. And that people who are speaking properly are actually speaking hatefully. We're going to get into this Orwellian orgasm. We're going to get into Huxley. We're going to get into all of that because I'm now going to introduce one of the, really a mentor, a peer mentor. Can you have a peer mentor? Why not? Why not have a peer mentor? And mine is none other than John Beaupre. You've heard his name for many, many years here in Los Angeles. He's an award-winning journalist, has been associated with KPFK as well as other non-commercial broadcasters for many years as a reporter, as a writer, as a producer, as a morning host since his first volunteering experience in 1992. As professor of TV, film, and media studies at Cal State LA for nearly 20 years, teaching the secret, the man behind the curtain to the young minds that will be taking the baton and saving our ass one cheek at a time. Well, John, he doesn't usually speak like I do, so he's probably like squirming in his chair, but that's okay. He loves me nonetheless. For 20 years, he taught courses on media and broadcasting and the role of non-commercial broadcasting in society. Society, you, me, and your grandmother. He also has been working with IMRU, of which this is a twofer that I mentioned. IMRU is the LGBT radio program on KPFK, probably the longest running ever in American history. Certainly when I started the gay channel on Sirius XM back in around 2002 called OutQ, which ran for about 15 years, that was the first ever national coast-to-coast broadcast every day. I did the morning show right here from Hollywood, and instead, I never did gay content. Why? Because what does that have to do with anything? Seriously. What I did is I brought on Noam Chomsky and got dating tips from him because I knew the gays would be somewhat interested in that part, but they would get a first-time introduction to Noam Chomsky. Yes, crypto broadcasting. That is my specialty. But let me bring in John Beaupre. John, a thrill, a delight, and a treat to have you on the airwaves, your natural habitat, like a bonobo chimp. Here you are in your cage of fun.
You got me chuckling. I can't believe that we're finally on the air together. I've wanted to do this for so long. It's a real treat, and I'm really grateful for you asking me, Cary. After I retired from KPFK, I kind of kept a low profile. And if you didn't know it, my start at KPFK was actually on IMRU, which I produced for many years and was a part of and revamped and refurnished in around 1995 or 96. And we were thinking of changing the names to Queer Things Considered or Fairy Home Companion or other...
Fairy? Did you say fairy with an F?
Yes, yeah, because Fairy Home Companion was already taken, so Fairy Home Companion. But I moved on to other things, as happens in this business, and your charge that you just covered just now, oh my God, that's a graduate seminar for 3 or 4 years worth of material to talk about. And I'm not sure I'm up to the brains power that you think that you just demonstrated, but we'll give it a shot.
Well, you're going to have to because I've laid you in front of a cruel and vicious audience. So we're going to have to get your A+ here, and I know we will. Let me just do a quick call to action to KPFK because that is the plot of the play today. I want you to support KPFK because KPFK let me have on John Beaupre. That's a big deal. Like letting us bring on the Noam Chomskys that I mentioned earlier, or the late Howard Zinn, who I used to bring on all the time, or any of these other incredible luminaries. Alan Watts is still somehow alive, even though he died in the 70s. You wouldn't know it. You hear him all the time, but probably the single greatest spiritual philosopher that has ever graced the floors of this planet, other than one of my favorites, Martin Luther. Not because of the Reformation, because he was a potty mouth. He was just a caprophagiac, if there ever was one. Early Christianity. I mean, these guys all come with a wealth of magnificence that we're not allowed to be taught in school. Just like when George Washington visited my family's farmhouse in Maryland, on the eastern shore of Maryland, on the way to Washington, George would spend the night. He did that at farmhouses routinely. In the family diaries, all they could write about was his abominable table manners. That's it. But this is the stuff. Why did he have abominable table manners? Well, in his, George Washington's personal diaries, he wrote about sleeping next to Martha was akin to sleeping next to a horse. Now, who says that about their wife and thinks they're going to stay married? So there was a lot more to George than you and I ever get to know about, and I'll reveal that another time in another show. But back to John Beaupre, my superstar superhero. Let's do a quick call to action, or I will, for KPFK. Supporting this station allows this free form of conversation. You can go to kpfk.org right now, kpfk.org, make a secure donation, $25, 50, 100, 150. And with that, you also, at the $250 level, you become a member of KPFK. What does that entitle you to? Well, as you know, we do movie screenings here and there. We do this, we do that. As a member, you have ownership of the station. You're not a bystander, a hitchhiker, a skitcher, if you ever have been up north, grew up and dragged yourself behind cars over ice. That's called skitching. You are not a skitcher. You become an owner, and owners have a voice and a vote. It's very important. So make that $250 donation. You can even call our hotline. Remember telephones? You push buttons. Sometimes if you have a rotary phone, I'm impressed. Your name might be Mildred. That's good. Pick up the phone out of the cradle, as it was called, and dial 818-985-5735, 818-985-5735. Make the donation of your choice. Whatever fits your budget, whatever fits your appetite, so that you can support free speech. Because guess what? If this station goes bye-bye, guess what you've got left? Relaxing, easy favorites. And that's it. They won't even tell you what's in the drinking water, and you'll succumb to that. We will tell you what's in the drinking water. It may make you throw up, but at least you can choose not to drink that particular drinking water, or as I like to call it, the mayor's blend, and maybe find another spigot with better water somewhere else. Those are the basic things that we do here for you that you will not find on the local TV. Why? Because the car dealerships don't like those kinds of stories. They like the cats being rescued from the tree. But every time a cat is rescued from a tree, I do not benefit. I do not become smarter. I do not become more capable at defending the turf around me. I do not know what to do. I still can't figure out how it's even humanly possible to have 100,000 homeless people in a city that's got a $20 billion annual budget. That would mean asking questions, but no one's allowed to ask those questions except here on KPFK. If you like the idea of being involved and having agency in your own life and your own decisions, you'll pick up that phone and call 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK, or you'll go to kpfk.org, kpfk.org, and make a secure donation right now. Back to John Beaupre again, award-winning journalist associated with KPFK once upon a time, as well as many other non-commercial broadcasters. Pick a call letters here in LA. He's been on those airwaves, winning awards, making them relevant, making them awesome, and then spending 20 years at Cal State LA teaching TV, film, media studies on the deepest levels to the young minds that are ready to take over the baton. And let's jump in right now, John. Let's look at Elon Musk. Here's a guy who has taken over Twitter. He's already blown all the top people out. He's brought Donald Trump in as his first big move, because what could be more important than Donald Trump? Why would Donald Trump be so important to anyone, I wonder?
Oh, man, that's a startup. Actually, I meant to ask you before the show, Cary, if we could avoid Elon Musk, but I guess there's no way to avoid Elon Musk. The question with Elon Musk is he's clearly very canny in what he wants to do and how he wants to do it. But he's jumped on board with the national, international obsession with everyone having their voice, which is a good egalitarian idea. The problem we've never been able to resolve is good ideas. There's also a lot of junk. There's also a lot of crap. And there's also a lot of quote unquote fake news. So it remains to be seen if someone with all the money in the world that Elon Musk has is going to be able to make that distinction. It's a hard call, because we love the idea of egalitarianism, of everyone having a say. There's no more egalitarian place to work than in a place like KPFK. And let me add my little 2 cents to your pitch there. Even if you don't like the program, don't agree with the programming at KPFK, I urge you to pull out that MasterCard, that Visa, that whatever other card you've got, your email address, and pledge support to this station. Not because you like the show, but because the concept of free speech radio, independent radio, is so under threat and so under challenge across the country. There's very, very few places that have the right and the ability and the tradition and the history of ringing your finger in the face of people who have ideas and thoughts. So you don't have to like the program. If it stirs your imagination, if it gets you excited or something, consider that as your inspiration for pledging your support to KPFK, 985-5735. A number that I have memorized now after several decades of being associated with the station.
I think it sounds like you memorized it before the area code was required.
Back in my genetics somewhere, Cary. I don't know where to go with Elon, and I think it's...
Well, let me throw a proposition out, because your bailiwick, your wheelhouse, your master class that you have been teaching for 20 years at Cal State LA is about understanding media, like who's the man behind the curtain, what's the payoff, why do they say what they do, why do they leave out what they leave out. My sense is this: one of the things that Elon Musk has done so brilliantly on Twitter and been punished for it repeatedly, but to him it's just a small fine is part of overhead of doing business. He loves to talk up his stock, talk down his stock, and it changes things by the billions. It makes other people bankrupt. It changes federal policy. So by unleashing Twitter and making it a free-for-all, it's a proxy. Sure, you can bring on Donald Trump, you can bring on everyone else, point over there and say, look, it's free speech. But what does he get to do? He gets to have unbridled access, once again, to the largest megaphone on earth and talk up his stock, talk up SpaceX, talk up investments. It's all about him. This is why he's so good, if you like if you like Bond villains.
Yes, I think you're completely on the money there. Remember, pre-1990, let's say, and it's hard to put an exact year, but pre-millennium, let's say, the concept of networks were generally associated. The network sort of equaled big, equaled power, it equaled authority, it equaled credibility, and he sort of had to be credible because the competition was so fierce. But as other platforms came online, as we had Facebook and MySpace, remember MySpace? Facebook, and all the other platform, all the other social media, a category that didn't exist. Social media? What do you mean by social media? We all now know what that all means, but it would certainly at the time, it was a bizarre and strange outlook. But what it meant was, in the simplest form, was that Jane Doe or me, happy little teacher in East Los Angeles, could pick up my phone and literally talk to the entire world, technologically. It didn't mean that I had the authority or the power where people would listen to me, because it takes a lot more than just having the technology to get people to tune in. But I had the technology to do that if people came to search out my name and my broadcast chain. So suddenly, everyone, at least technically, was on the same basis as Walter Cronkite and Chet Huntley and David Brinkley and go down the list, Peter Jennings, had the same access to technology. They didn't have the same access to writers and producers and editors, and God forbid, the rules of journalism. And if there's anything that I stand for here tonight, Cary, it's a really traditional view of what journalism means, and that's kind of sacred in my mind's eye. It's not up for discussion. And one of the things that we look for in journalism is, are you doing it professionally, or are you doing it as an amateur? Amateurs can do it. Everyone can do it. But if someone has to base their career on telling whatever is the truth, then I tend to believe that person. And my saying of the week has been, belief is not evidence. And unfortunately, they have switched places. Believing in it is enough to believe in it. Many of you probably saw 60 Minutes last night, the really incredible segment on the move towards state election officials moving over to the dark side. And I want to believe that the history so far, even with Trump-appointed judges, has been that all of these challenges to the elections have failed. And that's a good sign. We haven't had anything like this in front of us, but it's going to be so important for journalists, what it equals to be journalists, to dig deep and find the facts and keep repeating the truth until it becomes believed, and remembering that belief is not evidence.
Wow, well put. That's the voice of John Beaupre. You know his voice because you've heard his voice on KCRN, on a variety of other stations other than KPFK. And of course, he's been a top professor at Cal State LA, teaching really in-depth media. And with such gratitude, I point out, passing the baton to the next generations, not the baton of here's how to do Instagram or take a selfie. And we all remember Gore Vidal's most famous quote, of his 85 most famous quotes. But he was asked at a closing commencement speech at Harvard, some very serious graduate asked him, so what advice would you give someone who wants to get into broadcast journalism on TV? And Vidal turned and looked at the student, straightened his tie, and Gore looked at him and said, definitely take a course in hair and makeup. And that was his response to journalism. And this would have been 10 or 15 years ago. This is well before today, where of course you should take a course in hair and makeup. What else is there?
Voice and performance, which was what my straw was, how I got involved in the business to begin with. My educational background basically being in theater and performance, I came to the business kind of looking at the folks I saw on TV, reporters, anchors, and believe it or not, producers and writers for some reason. There's a reason for that, but I'll save that for a later discussion. And I had assumed that they'd all had voice and performance training. And it turned out almost none of them had, or they'd had a very short semester of someone helping them learn how to breathe, and they still breathe wrong. And I found this need and a passion. These people that I worked with were so passionate about it that I stayed for a couple of years as a voice and performance coach, because broadcasting is important in that sense. We have to keep our stories in a conversational sort of way. How do we talk when we're talking face to face with people? How do we sound friendly and reliable? And how do we sound stupid and distant? And all those things were important. And that led to my belief that if I was going to be teaching this, I should be doing it as well. So I went out and started selling stories as a freelancer on BBC and NPR and, you name it, California Connected, all those other places where I had stories going. And that all started with voice and performance. So part of that, I don't put down. Voice and performance is critical.
Yeah, let me have you, because you did it earlier, you were just kidding around doing a mic check, but you have a tongue twister that I cannot replicate. I certainly could never commit it to memory, not with the 4 dendrites left in my skull. Yeah. But what is your little tongue twister? So that people understand, this would have been called elocution maybe in our grandparents' day, or diction, the word nobody knows even what any of this means anymore. But these were real exercises that one did so that you could actually be heard, like the BBC. We all remember what it used to sound like. You could actually understand it. So give us this little tongue twister so that people can understand the rigors that you went through.
Well, there's many of them, and I wrote a book on broadcast voice exercises, and that I collected all these over the many, many years that I was teaching, and I really love them. They're very sweet and kind of silly. But the one that I think that I taught, that I said when I was talking to you, was what to do to die today at a minute or two till 2, a thing distinctly hard to say, but harder still to do. For they'll beat it at 20 till 2 with a rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tum, and the dragon will come when he hears the drum at a minute or two till 2 today, at a minute or two till 2. I think that may be Gilbert and Sullivan. I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, if you could pull that off, then you can.
Let me give you one more. I got to give you one more.
Yes.
She stood on the steps of Burgess's fish sauce shop, inexplicably mimicking him hiccuping and amicably welcoming him in. And I actually stumbled on that. She stood on the steps of Burgess's fish sauce shop, inexplicably mimicking him hiccuping and amicably welcoming him in. That is going to save journalism.
So what we're hearing now from John Beaupre, award-winning journalist associated with KPFK once upon a time, as well as many other non-commercial broadcasters, including all the biggies that you know here in Los Angeles, been a professor for 20 years at Cal State LA, pulling the curtain and teaching these young kids who are taking the baton how it all works, why it all works that way, and why it is not working as well as it could, but knowing when it did work well, because he was a participant of when it did work well, and doing as we all are, trying to bring that back. John Beaupre just gave us an idea of what, when people used to study journalism, it was more than just being able to tell a good yarn, have great research skills, fact checking, all of that. But presentation is important, because if you talk like this and do a news story and people can't really understand what you're saying, then it's really hard for them to absorb the information and be able to act on it, especially if it's critical, like the nuclear power plant meltdown, and radiation's coming your way about 400 miles an hour. It's, hit your front door in about 23 minutes. You ought to leave.
I had a friendly challenge to you on that, and we started to talk about this the other day over coffee or something. I forget where we were. But the strange thing is that I don't really think that every journalist should sound mid-Atlantic PBS English. Now, there's no excuse for being misunderstood, for not being heard and not being clear. But that leaves us a lot of room to be understood when we consider that the biggest countries of English speakers is India, believe it or not. And the versions of English that go around the planet can all be clear and comprehensible. If you were from Jamaica, man, the government come to take a bauxite, man, go to the ganja in Jamaica, to go there. Or if you're from India, whatever it is you're wanting, we are not having. The flight is indefinite. I'm sorry, I cannot help you. Or Vermont. Yeah, in the back in the farm. You're not driving in the farm in Vermont. These are all versions of English, which I think are justifiable and when you're clear and comprehensible, that taste and that flavor of where you come from, why should we hide that? Why should we obscure it and say you need to sound like the middle of the Atlantic Ocean? Not quite British, but not really American. You know what I mean?
I have a sense of why that is. And let me just reintroduce myself and you, because we all get caught up in the world of podcasting now. It can go on forever, and people listening in their cars who have to get out are like, I have no idea who this is. And that's naughty radio. So we're going to do behaving radio. Cary Harrison with you. This is the Cary Harrison Show. You can get my free newsletter at CaryHarrison.com. That's CARY, CaryHarrison.com, in which you're going to get all kinds of cool insight like this, much more long form, including videos and other nuggets that you simply cannot get in a short form radio thing that's endlessly interrupted by this, that, and the other. So I want you to get it. Your email is safe with me, safe and secure, just like my sexuality, which nobody can guess at this point, I'm sure, after me having started the gay channel 20 years ago. That said, we're talking right now to John Beaupre, professor, Cal State LA for 20 years. He is now in comfortable retirement, having written multiple books, been on every radio station here. And we're talking about radio, and we're talking about sort of the nuances of journalism, stuff that now seems vaguely memorable to you, why it used to be that way and why it's missing. And we're going to get into that a little further. One of the things that the British gave the British people was called RP, or received pronunciation. And back in the days of, say, your grandparents, when they grew up, unless they were in, a Cockney part of London, but if they were hoping to aspire to a better place, they had their dialects removed, regional sounds. And they took received pronunciation, which means simply you have received the pronunciation from the crown. This is how you're going to sound if you're going to have any credibility, any chance of joining a club and being in that highly stratified place called England, which, by the way, the United States was that way all the way until probably the late 60s, 70s, and by the 80s, it was pretty much gone. You know, we had Ronald Reagan, an actor in the White House, with his wife, Nancy, who famously could unbuckle her jaw and service half of Hollywood. So it was kind of the end of the old school WASP thing, for sure. But before that, it was stratified. There were deed restrictions. You could not sell your house to fill in the blank kind of people with those last names. It was real here. So we did get rid of our accents and dialects, and the news people had to all sound like they were from Nebraska or wherever you're from, John. I think you're from the Midwest with some beautiful neutral sound. Am I right?
Nevada.
Yeah.
Northern Nevada. But I took a lot of voice coaching and training as I was in my education, and I treasure those variations in speech and dialect. We don't all have to say, wrap your sandwich in the aluminium foil and put it in the back of the lorry. The lift, excuse me, is it working? We don't have to do that to tell people where we are, and we love the reality. I'll tell you, if it comes to credibility, and it's credibility is the question here. If someone's doing a story, this terrible story of the bridge collapse in India today, would you trust who's got a closer play on that particular story? The American or, I don't know, Bermudan journalist who sounds like Peter Jennings, or an Indian reporter who has been there the whole time and is able to watch when the collapse happened? The credibility of what that story is added to when that person is clear and comprehensible, but they may bring the flavor and the taste of their own culture, their own history, and their own experience. And I think that's really valuable. It's not something to be covered over and hidden.
To your point, John Beaupre, professor, Cal State LA, emeritus, also publisher, a writer, author of multiple books all about media. You can find him. Just Google B-E-A-U, Beau, P-R-E, John, and you're going to see a panoply, a pantheon of parturient publishing or something like that. I could quintuply alliterate, but you and I would just end up having an inside conversation and everyone else would hang up their ears. So we won't do that to each other. I mean, we'll do that to each other, but not to the audience.
Let me compliment you on this. Part of what is so fun about talking to you is that you look at what could be conceived of this world of media and platforms and ways of engaging with it, whether you are doing Instagram or TikTok. I hadn't known much about TikTok until lately and realized that it could be insidious because it pulls tons and tons of stuff about your viewing habits and who you see and who you watch. What I'm trying to say is that you make this study, this look at this world, really fun, really serious. You take it serious as a grown-up would take it, but it's also a lot of fun. And that's the key to understanding what's going on in these media worlds and what they have to say and how they have to say it. They're not value-free, whether it's Instagram or TikTok or any of the other social media platforms that are out there. Are they actually changing society? And I think in a lot of ways they are, and not in ways that we particularly like. And we're always astonished. I mean, last thought here. They're always astonished when they say, "Oh my God, they collected all that information on me." Well, you know something? I have never clicked a like button on a website or in social media. Never clicked a like button. I won't do it because that's more than I want people to know about my life and my personality and my contacts. So it's fun. I appreciate your take on it because I always look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you, John Beaupre. And, Ed Snowden was right. I mean, nobody likes to hear that, but he was. And that's why he's not here. And Julian Assange also, like enemy number one of Earth. But explain why. Well, we all know why, but we're not really allowed to talk about it except on KPFK, where you can dial 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK, and make a donation to be able to continue to hear these kinds of conversations. Let's face it, this is interesting. Come on. I don't care if you think you're a nitwit or you think you're a genius. This is interesting. This is the core of everything we do every day. We live in media. There is no way to extricate ourselves from it. You could be off the grid, but you're still trying to get gossip from the town of when is the avalanche coming. That's media too. But media, we are so saturated in it. We're bombarded by electrons and RFs, media on our phones and here and there. We are part of it. It is like literally part of our DNA now. It is ruining us in many ways, but we can also find a way to live with it without it poisoning us or overfeeding us in all of the wrong ways. You can call 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, or go to kpfk.org and make a donation that fits you. Notice how I'm not telling you how much? No, you're a grown-up. You can decide for yourself what the value of your ability to listen freely without a censor slapping you across the face and saying you will never do it again or you'll be punished or fined. This will never happen here. So go to kpfk.org and make that donation. And if you feel like saying Cary Harrison Show, well, they will love me. Do I get paid to do this? No. Did I just say I didn't get paid to do this? Yes, I don't get paid to do this. I volunteer my time, which has value, whatever that could possibly be, just as your donation has value, whatever that will possibly be, at kpfk.org. Why do I do this? Because if I don't do this, it goes away. And then you'll have your relaxing, beautiful, easy favorites, and you'll never know what's going on until it's too late. When it's too late, it's too late. That's why we are prophylactically, using that word in a brand new, cool way, prophylactically offering you a new way out. And that is the whole point. That is the plot of the play here. And John Beaupre, we were talking for just a second about credibility in journalism, which is everything. Walter Cronkite, would pull his glasses off and look at the camera occasionally. And you gasped. There was something big was going to come along. Same with David Brinkley, would sweep his greased back, hair. These little nuanced things, but we knew it was going to be important. Here's a trick that let's talk about a little bit and dissect. CNN International, not CNN. Most of us have probably seen in airports CNN International. It's totally different from CNN here. There's no like Miss Don Lemon giggling and, showing pictures of the yearbook. It's a whole different form. CNN International almost never And CNN overall
vote
Aussies,
suppression
they're
scheme
Kiwis.
So you didn't
they're
call him,
Brits,
but you challenged
they're
his right
South
to vote or have his
Africans,
ballot challenged.
but almost never Americans.
His
No
lie?
credibility. We seem like we know nothing. We
By
can't find
Brian
Canada on a
Kemp
map
of
even
Georgia.
given more than 9 minutes.
His lie.
Black
That's
people,
how the
other
commit-
people of Earth look at us, and
Voter
CNN
fraud.
figured that out. So they only put people with English accents on when it's international or when they have these regional dialects. They have these sounds that are different from BBC, but they have the credibility and the gravitas. So let's talk for a second, John, about why
I could go to prison.
our news because
They raided
it's a
a voter
transition to the
registration
next
office
story or
and tried
whatever.
to send
That
all of these
somehow
college kids
this
to
is more
jail.
watchable, the ratings are better, the advertisers
Can I get on
like it
campus
more.
sign that
What's your
controversial
sense on
election
that?
bill?
Because this
He's
is on
created
everyone's
an
mind.
army of vote
It is
vigilantes.
involuntary. It is not
That
on
doesn't
any
mean that you get to levy a
advertising,
charge
and certainly
against
not on any
thousands
voice.
Black people
From
voting.
Get out of my house now. Well, because
How did a
CNN doesn't have their entire
208-year-old
facility in
dynasty
Atlanta
turn
open
into Africa?
from Hong Kong. No reason not to, but it was just really notable.
Exactly
That,
how-
and to their credit, CNN over the years has built up a huge network.
Are you
where they
removing
could
black
broadcast
voters from the voter
international
rolls?
news from
Just so
An 8-year investigation out in October.
Al Jazeera's facility in Kuala Lumpur.
A Greg
which is on the
Palast
40th floor
investigation
of
produced
the
by.
Far Eastern News Center. So I'm sorry, to go back to your question was,
Well, I'm just going to reintroduce you. I think that's when they're driving on the 405. We're talking right now to the great, and I say great because there are a handful of greats that are still around, still doing the Lord's work, still helping us understand, dissect, reverse engineer this thing we called media, and we're not just mired in it like goo, slopping around, trying to figure out how to get through. Guys who really deeply understand. Mornings here once upon a time, then jumped off to all the other non-commercial broadcasters. Any call letter you say in town, that's going to be a place where he has been. Was there many years as a reporter, as a writer, as a producer, as a morning host, ever since 1992. Then became professor of TV, film, media studies at Cal State LA, bringing a level of genius that they hadn't before that been able to enjoy. And of course, Beaupre has written many, many books on media, the nature of it, how it works, why it works that way. And because you are stuck in it, it's never going away. AI is moving in at the speed of light. Artificial intelligence to talk about, it never gets it right yet. But one less human to pay, one less insurance policy to deal with, one less fill in the next generation. So it's a 818-985 KPFK. Make a donation of your choice, whether it's 25, 50, 75, 100. Why don't you match what if I were doing this professionally and actually getting paid or compensated? What my day rate is around $1,500. So put in a 50. No, don't, if you really want to. But you could put in $75 or $100 or 150. If you put in $250, you become a member of KPFK, which gives you all toast. I have no place to go. The right-wing folks aren't going to have me. The hardcore left-wing folks aren't going to have me either, because I'm about what's really true. And that doesn't fit everyone's design either. But that's the kind of the notion of journalism. It's about research and accountability. And you deserve the hour. We're looking at the media. Let's augur the future, John. Let's pull out your crystal balls, all of them, and you can peer in and tell us, where is this all going to go? Just having watched how it was formed, how it evolved, equal time laws, all the way until basically George Bush the first drove the first spike into it. And then Bill Clinton finished it off for us. And now we have on the AM dial nothing but Klan rallies and weird old toothless hootenannies. And then all the rest of this bizarre, weird ever lived. Then I would be getting 3 hours on the same station saying why Gandhi was an awful guy who blew up. And that was equal time.
Yeah, fair expression, or I can't remember the terminology, but
fairness doctrine.
Fairness doctrine. Thank you. My poor brain is failing me as I get old.
Mine too, as you can hear.
Go back to the distant past, a little side note. I got to say, was the ability to volunteer at KPFK, and that they let us do that, and make mistakes sometimes, but really knew that our hearts were in the right place. And it would be such a shame to not have this element in the media said. oh my God, how the hell would I know where they were going to go in media? What I can say is this: then we're going to see more fragmentation and consolidation. That's an odd thing to think, but as long as there's more media out there, then there's more chance for media organizations to join up and connect with other big organizations. He changed in his life, and in the Walt Disney, this lovely, kind gentleman from Kansas City who found his way, in the Depression era or shortly thereafter to Los Angeles to make little few cartoons, and it's the biggest in its consolidation. Is that just because they are consolidated doesn't mean that they're any better. So the same company allies and its philosophy. At the same time, they will buy the movie maker who did The Crying Game, forms and channels and consolidations. Then there's going to be much more room for very, very specific, not just story ideas, sports, women's tennis channel, not just that kind of specialization, but also every kind of temperament. That they are loud and brash, they're quiet and quiet and just not noticeable in the environment, or they're going to be some combination, or you'll have half a day of Spanish language economics stories,